Welcome to the first Smart Talk. This series is an initiative by the city's Innovation Council. Smart Talks will engage a member of the Innovation Council with our mayor and city employees in a conversation about something that bears significance to the city's development. Today's topic is human resources and their value-creating power within the smart city paradigm. Mayor Valdez-Fowley will discuss this topic with Harry Osley, who is the Chief HR Officer at the Hackett Group, a leading consulting firm focused on facilitating digital transformation in the corporate world. Harry does have a specialization in best practices, technology, and world-class operational models to drive a better customer experience while optimizing efficiencies. Through his work at the Hackett Group, Harry has led many successful projects with some of the world's leading brands such as GE, Walmart, ADP, Citigroup, Rio Tinto, Verizon, Office Depot, FPL Group, and the NBA. So let's welcome Mayor Valdez-Fowley and Harry with a round of applause.
Harry, thank you very much for participating in this, in our Innovation Council and in this program. And as you know, Coral Gables is part of a worldwide consortium in the sense that we are one of the fine cities in South Florida. And today, cities represent about 80% of the world's GDP. And we have to continue doing this and continue being at the forefront of the world growth through the 21st century. By 2030, over 6 billion people will live in cities, and they will represent the future growth of humanity. However, the successful ride of this growth depends on the development of competitive and adaptive management resources to take advantage of our opportunities. And those teams in the cities should enable us to take advantage of technology change, which is coming rapidly. We should also avoid bottlenecks, drawbacks. I saw a statistic that if you take a bucket and put bacteria in it and they duplicate every second, which will fill the bucket in a minute, how long do you think it'll take to fill half of the bucket? And that is 59 seconds. I mean, the growth is exponentially being faster and faster. We set up the Innovation Council and have these smart talks to discuss the single most important element in this growth, which is human resource development. As you and I are aware, most organizations are effective at recruiting talent, but that talent, the effectiveness diminishes as they get into the job, as they progress in the chain within the company and enter development and leadership building phases. Our investments in technology, however, keep growing faster and faster every year. And it'll be $108 billion in technology from 2010 to 2020, most of it as 2020 approaches. The annual spending will be $16 billion a year, and I want Coral Gables to be at the forefront of that. And that technology will impact every activity in the city, from safety to quality of life to whatever it is. So we demand a roster of talent, productivity in every single area, and quick execution of chores, vision as how to improve things, capacity to adapt. Some institutions have chosen digitalization as a vehicle to effect change, and strong development in human resources. Others have managerial practices such as Six Sigma. Others prefer open spaces for employees to develop their own solutions. Which of these approaches, Harry, do you think, in your opinion, merits the most consideration?
Well, first, thank you, Mayor, for having me as part of this first Smart Talk. I really appreciate being here with all of you. I would say digitalization is the key. Digital transformation is affecting the change because it drives the impacts and drives the key initiatives which drives change for any organization. With that, with digital transformation really is everywhere. If you look at our smartphones, which you all have today, We work on apps all the time. Apps are part of the digital transformation phenomenon that we're in right now. If you think of driverless cars, which are there today, or the Uber app, or Amazon, all of these sources and all these organizations and all these products and services that are provided really came from digital transformation. So to me, the first thing that drives change and most effective is digital transformation. With that, with digital transformation, really, you have to think about, from a human resources perspective, the fact that the skill sets are changing for workers today. Recruitment of talent, identifying key skills, goal setting, assessments are very, very key. How you brand, whether it's branding the city or branding your firm, is very, very key. But identification of key skill sets, how to identify what those key skill sets are today, what inventory an organization has today is very important, and how to develop that skill set for tomorrow is very key. Organizations, as I said before, need to brand themselves in a different way to attract the key talent that's needed for the future. Because it's not just about bringing talent in, it's bringing talent in for the skill sets of today and the skill sets of the future.
Thank you, Harry. According to a very reputable sources, including MIT, organizations that intend to successfully ride this technology wave should encourage hard work, should encourage innovation, and should encourage developing skill profiles that include data scientist organization, data scientist expertise, and bring people who can read grand data, and decompose the grand data, all the data we have, into small sets that give rise to the needs for services and products. In-house software developers to create applications based on what the grand data tells you, and code writers to facilitate the process controls. So you need the information, you need the people that will develop the solutions for those demands, and code writers to facilitate the process controls, and transsectoral managers, people who can look at the big picture. Now, these are skills that you think a smart city, such as what we want Coral Gables to be, are these the skills that we need?
Absolutely. I would say, without a doubt, you need these types of skills. Big data, or grand data, as you were framing it, is only increasing. So we call this, through kind of the Internet of Things. So as you can see above me, there's an individual, this happens today, an individual riding to work without touching the steering wheel, right? And the car is smart enough to understand at a three-way stop sign where to stop, where there's pedestrians, if there's a dog crossing the street, and it gets the individual safely to work. I see that it gets them safely to work. It doesn't go over the speed limit. Understands where there's different data. But on the left-hand side of the screen, which is the important side for us to hear today, that vehicle, or that Internet of Things, is capturing data all the time. It is capturing number of trees, number of dogs, number of cats. That data is being sent to the cloud. That cloud is capturing that data, and as it accumulates, becomes big data. The important thing is, what do you do with this data going forward? So for instance, now it's capturing number of trees. In the future, it could say, I'm capturing number of oak trees. And it can also start predicting, because it's not important to have data. The important thing is to have predictive data. What is it telling us? And if it's driving to something like a number of oak trees, pollen counts are up. Why not have, if the pollen counts are up, it can send an alert to hospitals, doctors, the community, saying the pollen count is up. We may see a rush of certain individuals in an emergency room. It's smart. It's taking data that's static, making it predictive, and driving analytics from it.
As you must know, Coral Gables is one of the few cities in South Florida that has embraced the Six Sigma approach to managerial excellence. When effectively practiced, that corrects deviations from excellence and predicts problems and solves problems. Harry, what do you suggest? There are other areas that we can do, but what do you suggest other resources for a smart city? We can establish business opportunities. We can develop management, et cetera. What do you suggest?
All of these are very, very important, Mayor. But I'd say at the top of the list is adopting a consultative approach to process improvement. As organizations take different approaches to driving Six Sigma or driving change. But the consultative approach is very, very key. And I've worked with, as we alluded to earlier, I've worked with the largest Six Sigma organizations in the world, whether it's GE or Walmart or Nextera. And all of them take this consultative approach to driving change. Why? Because it's important to understand if something needs to change, but the consultative approach tells a story around that. So if you take the data and says, okay, we have to change the way we recruit individuals, and you have to change that process, a consultative approach puts that into a storyline and says, why are you doing it? Is there a financial impact to doing it? Is there a benefit to the employees for doing that? I think it's very, very key to taking a consultative approach. Adopting such an approach drives a constant introspective view of achieving the maximum impact somebody can have across any of these key dimensions shown here. Also important to understand that in order to drive change, a consultative approach is important, but in order to drive sustainable change, you need training. You need development of key talent. Because if not, you're just like static data. The employees become static over time. So to me, and this is where, quite frankly, most organizations in the United States fail. Because one of the first things that happens when there's an economic impact, training gets put on the back shelf. But to me, organizations that are smart, world-class organizations that we see all the time, invest more in training and development. It's the only way to drive sustainability. If you look at the organizations who are driving the greatest impact in their market space, it's because they consistently look at the skill sets that they have, the skill sets that they need in the future, and develop individuals to get there.
According to UN Habitat, the goal is to make cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. And that is what we're trying to do in Coral Gables. Safe, resilient, and sustainable. What human resource development strategy should we follow, Harry?
I think, Mayor, it really starts with a smart talk. So what do I mean by that? I think it's really about open communications and consistent training. In my experience, organizations that really drive inclusion, safety, resiliency, and sustainability are those organizations that have clear open communications. Not open communications that's a policy. Now I'm talking about top-down and bottom-up open communications, which really means a clear open door policy, an ability to be honest, but at the same time respectful. And if you are honest and respectful and you have open communications from the bottom up and to the top down, you will have safety, inclusion, resiliency are outputs or outcomes of having that open communication. Sustainability comes from both this open communications and training, and the key to sustainability in these organizations is to consistently develop its workforce and training and ways of thinking and working together collectively.
Thank you, Harry. This conversation enriches our vision and provides us a highway to do better. My takeaway includes we need digitalization, which is the most effective means of bringing change. The development of a pool of skills that will allow us to take advantage of this data that digitalization produces. Promotion of root cause analysis and interpretive skills, and also continuing training. These, I think, are the most important ingredients in doing what we need to do to make Coral Gables a smart city. Talent attraction, and then, as you mentioned a minute ago, training. Would you add anything else to this?
No, Mayor, I would not add anything to your list, but I would emphasize that everything that is exceptional gets done with exceptional people and exceptional talent. Everything that we see, whether it's the Uber app or Amazon, and or it's any of the latest trends in shopping, what have you, behind all those technologies are really smart people with great skill sets that are driving that change. So to me, it really starts with exceptional people, exceptional training, focused on the goals, and to drive that change. To that end, it is key that we ensure that the City Beautiful continues to, in order to continue to prosper under your leadership, it needs to reflect on a continuous improvement process and development of this key talent to drive innovation and take advantage of the digital revolution that's here and we're living in.
Thank you, Harry.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, guys, so now we are going to go to the question and answer portion of the conversation here. So we only have about approximately 15 minutes, so if we can keep questions concise and succinct. But if anybody has questions for Mr. Osley, go ahead and raise your hand.
We've been talking about getting the best talent and keeping the best talent out there, and I recently saw a report that the Microsoft and Apples of the world are researching what is important to this top talent that's graduating now, and a lot of them are not just looking at perhaps salaries or benefits packages, but they're also looking at how sustainable companies are, how responsible they are, and how they source their goods, how much they give back of what they take in to. So would you like to comment on that? And have you
Sure.
seen that this is the trend?
Sure. Well, that's absolutely the trend. So the more I work with large organizations, and the more I quite frankly recruit for our organizations, and you look at the young talent that's coming out of school, they're looking at compensation, but before, when compensation was probably number one, it's still up there. Compensation is always going to be a key issue, but the organization's focus on its community, its focus around how it provides training is very, very key. How that organization's communication policy is implemented, its Glassdoor ceiling policies and how those are implemented. So it's much more today about the individual and how that individual feels that organization is providing to its community. That's much more important. Benefits are very key, and you're seeing benefits such as, in today's tight market, you're seeing benefits such as paying off college tuition and loans as a key benefit, or even refinancing those loans at almost a zero rate is very, very key. So the fact is that compensation still continues to be important, but they will the new talent will trade off that compensation need for sustainability and focus of that organization.
Hi. Our department represents a department that is largely consistent of part-time personnel, and we rely on part-time personnel to make our department successful. And we've been fortunate over the years to have a lot of that part-time personnel retained, which is probably an anomaly. And most part-timers just go through and rotate and move on, and they've moved up, and some of them have joined us on a full-time basis. But we've recently, in this last 2 months, seen a trend where it's harder not just to recruit, but you have applicants applying, you're reviewing resumes, you're selecting them, and it's interview day, and you selected 6 candidates. Out of the 6, 2 show up. Out of the 10, 4 show up. So what's causing this trend where they applied for the position, they were really originally interested, they committed to an interview, but they're not showing up? Is there a change in generation? Is this a common factor?
So the answer is the change is coming from 2 aspects. One is a tight job market. So right now, in a tight job market, people will there's obviously not enough people for the number of jobs that we have. So what happens in a tight job market, it really comes down to supply and demand. So in a tight job market where those individuals were looking at 3 different jobs, the tight job market is probably driving them to select a job already. By the time they get to your interview, they've already taken another job. And by the way, that escalates because the pay difference is probably nominal to that individual, right? So going back to the earlier question, that comp issue might be there, but also the attractiveness, how you're branding the city and how you're branding that operation you need to relook at that, because in a tight job market, you need to relook at how you brand that function or that job for that individual and make it broader than just compensation. Right now, you're going through a compensation issue.
And we're fortunate to have great benefits for part-timers that I think most organizations don't have, but maybe we don't market that enough, because a lot of times we sit on interviews and then we preach on that, and it's the first time that the applicant actually hears that there's benefits associated to
That's
that
an
position.
issue. So the more you can get ahead of that curve and say, this is why you want to join us, or this is how you brand that job, you need to promote that more. Promotion is key. When I say branding, let me be very clear. When I say branding, it's about promotion. It's about not only just taking the City Beautiful logo and putting it out there. No, what does it mean to join City Beautiful? You have part-time benefits. You have things that others don't have. Well, you need to promote that. Because they might be making a decision on comp, but they're not looking at total compensation when it comes to benefits as well.
Perfect. Thank you.
What would you recommend that we can do from an HR perspective to get our leaders ready?
Well, if you look at across the city, and I would definitely be working with each one of your department leads, and really asking them. Well, one, the mayor has a vision. So based upon the mayor's vision, you have to start asking them, what is it they need to be doing in order to accomplish that vision? But your question from an HR perspective is, how do I help support that? In my experience, the worst developed or driven HR organizations are the ones that they think they're in business for HR. No, HR is in business to promote the business needs and to help drive those business needs. So to me, as an HR professional, what I would say is I'd be meeting with these functional and department leads, asking them, what are your talent needs for now and for the future? Do you have the right skill sets? Can I help you recruit these right skill sets? How do I help you drive a different compensation package for these individuals? How do I help you brand differently? How do I help you get the talent you need to drive that business and that department? That's the key to HR. It's not to be, the HR is in a, I've always said it's the most interesting of jobs. Some people don't think that, but I do. Because there's two, we have two customers. We have the management team and we have the employee. And no other function has that. We have responsibility to both. Your responsibility as it pertains to the department is what talent needs do you have in order to make sure that we address the mayor's vision and focus.
Thank you for your feedback.
Thank you.
This gentleman right here.
You mentioned the digitalization of technology, and not necessarily yet in government, but I've seen in other organizations that I've talked to colleagues. Do you find that there is a change in what is the normal traditional workplace? Now with the ability of smartphones, video conferencing, I find that the younger employees are looking for more of a flexible type of workspace, and I've even known some corporations with big VPs and presidents that spend half of their time working at an off-site location. So how do we deal with that in a government viewpoint where our frontline personnel is still going to have to be at the workplace to deal, but how do we face that challenge when we're going to be competing with organizations that have that flexibility for talented people in the future?
It's key. It's when you look at businesses, the workplace and the workspace is changing. How you work with, interact with in different meetings. The first thing you do is you take out your phone, right? And presentations, web access, everything can be done on these phones. I don't think you necessarily are looking at how do I compete with big business, right? But you're looking, I would say you need to introspectively look and say, how do I make it easier for our employees to do their business? And I wouldn't necessarily look at only workspace. I look at ease of use. Can they utilize their phones or iPads to do web access? Do they need to be in the office every day? You may not need to. So we look at it from a perspective of if the individual has to work with the community, obviously they need their workspace and all that. But how do you automate a lot of their functions so they can utilize apps, phones, iPads, whatever it is to make that process easier for them so they can provide better services. In your, because you had a two-part question. In your second part is, well, how do I compete with others? Is you've got to relook at, as we look at benefits, but not only your total benefits, what can you do to make that employee much more comfortable in their workspace? But you have to relook at things like, we're looking at gym memberships, we're looking at college tuition, we're looking at everything. All those come at a price, right? All those comes at a cost. So you have to be able to balance that overall.
Thank you.
So I think that's about all we have time for today, but let's go ahead and thank Mr. Harry Osley from the Hackett Group. So everybody, as we conclude, we hope you realize how important it has been for our city to embrace this Six Sigma approach to managerial excellence, which we feel is really going to help prepare the employees to ride this technology wave. Among many advancements, the city has also adopted several strategies to help build the skills necessary to establish and operate a smart city. Notably, among these strategies being the deployment of sensors in the commercial strip to extract big data that would then be used to enrich services in our city. So, we do realize that the road to excellence is long and is going to demand discipline and creativity. So we hope you enjoyed the conversation today, and thanks for tuning in.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you.